Hi, YouTube. Jack's angry as always, but me and Casey are happy. We got a Heisman winner. We got plenty to talk about. Like and subscribe. We're not going to let Jack talk, right, Casey?
No, not going to let Jack talk. Comment, turn on the alerts. And if you don't like the video, what are you doing with your life?
Just kidding. Get him, Jack.
Oh, subscribe. 50% of you who watch these videos don't subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? Like the video.
Hi, welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast, brought to you by the delicious and great and wonderful folks at High Noon Hard Seltzer. High Noon Sunsips, they are taking over the world, and they're doing it because of us, frankly. We got them started, but they are really taking over the world because they got the best hard seltzer in the game, real juice, real vodka for real people. Casey Smith.
Didn't do a cold open, which made me sad. I thought you were going to make fun of me wearing sunglasses, and then I was going to in turn tell everyone who's listening why I am wearing sunglasses, because you did the one move you're not supposed to do.
What did I do?
You said, "Are you still sick?" And I said, "No." And then you said, "So you're hungover?" And I said, "No, I didn't drink yesterday." And you look on your face was like, "Oh," and then you go, "Well, you look great." You can't do that. It's not nice.
Great. You look great, Casey. You look great. There you go. There's your regular glasses
this time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's just like Katie said, you can't, it's like, you don't comment. It's like when you say, "Oh my God, you look so tired." Like, that's not nice.
Or when somebody's standing there and you look at a woman behind them and say, "Is that your mom?" And they're like, "No, that's my fiance."
My God. That was such an all-time moment. That was so pure, because Marty didn't mean that at all. Like, he legitimately thought that woman was his mother. Tough.
So anything about High Noon, Casey?
I love it. It's delicious. I've run out of peach at my apartment. I'm gonna need to take some from the office. It's Christmas season, you gift High Noon. Why not?
So we have got a college football podcast here. We are entering the I guess we got about it's not a dead week. I was going to say it was a dead week before bowls start on on Friday, but Wednesday is National Signing Day. So it's a gigantic week for college football. We don't really delve into the recruiting side of things as far as covering it and the big prospects, but it is undeniable that if you want to win a national title, you better be a top flight recruiter. So this is a gigantic week.
Jack does a good job of covering that stuff. I know we've talked about this before, and it's beating a dead horse. Ever since they did the early signing day just doesn't have as much punch to me. Like, when it was in February and every single school was waiting and they had reporters across the country, and it was like I had to be up at 4 a.m. to be at A&M's campus. Like, that to me made it so much cooler. Now it's just kind of like, all right, like, we know they're going to sign. Somebody's going to like jump out of an airplane and say where they're going to go to school. Cool. I understand how important recruiting is. I'm not taking that away. But the fact that there's multiple days now kind of takes away the luster to me.
Do you know that your team is possibly on the precipice of signing the number one class in the country?
I do know that, which makes me very excited. However, I'm saying that because it's not only one day, it's not.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying there's got to be a little excitement underneath all that.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, shout out Billy Leach and the Texags crew. They've been on top of that for a long time. And all the people who thought Jimbo was doing that to take all those guys to LSU obviously were wrong. It's going to be huge. I know you sent us some homework. I've got some shit to say about that, though. So.
All right. So here's the homework I gave. So we're going to talk about the news. Oregon has a new coach. Virginia has a coach. Duke has a coach. Signing day is this week. Mike Leach had something to say about opting out of bowls yesterday. We might have a college football game on the horizon again for the video gamers. But and then we have a Heisman winner. We'll talk about the Heisman winner, who finished second and why that's ridiculous. I came up with a couple of ideas, okay? And one is the Life Heisman, the Heisman of your life. We have 4 people here of 4 different ages. So my idea was to name the Heisman winner for your life. And you can take that criteria any way you want it. You could give it to somebody who did win the Heisman. You could give it to the greatest Heisman. You could give it to who we all know Casey's going to give it to.
Nope. I have it on my list that I mean, he is on my list, obviously, but I knew you were going to say that, and I didn't want to be called a homer, so I did a different one. It's an asterisk.
So Casey, I swear to God, right here before God and everybody, if you've retroactively given the Heisman to Michigan quarterback Tom Brady, I will end this podcast.
I'm wearing an A&M shirt in solidarity.
All right.
But you just ruined my entire thing, and I'm really pissed off about it.
No, I didn't. Did I? No. So here's the thing. Not only your lifetime Heisman, but also the 5 that you would invite to your lifetime Heisman ceremony.
So I know that you don't like when I do these semantics.
Right.
Of the 5 that you could invite to your lifetime ceremony, are they Heisman winners?
I don't care.
Okay. I didn't think so.
There's no requirement. I have one on there that did not win the Heisman.
I have one on there. I have multiple that didn't win, but that were all invited. But now that I know that they weren't invited, I'm going to add somebody that wasn't invited.
And then I got a couple takes about this playoff, and we'll recap the 3 most disappointing, 3 biggest surprise teams of the year in our eyes. Okay, so there we go. That's the show. I think we start at the University of. You look confused.
No, I'm not confused. I think that, and I know Katie doesn't have it right now because we're doing this on Zoom versus in the office, but it would be interesting to compare, because didn't we do the 3 biggest surprise teams and the 3 most disappointing teams?
We did. I think we kind of already went over what we got right and what we got wrong. To me, this is just going over what we know now and kind of rewarding who actually is the 3 biggest.
Gotcha. Okay.
In my estimation. Jack, you had something to say.
We did go over it. I think Casey, you were sick or like traveling or something. It was one of those episodes.
I think that I remember because I went like 3-0 for one of them.
Yeah.
That's why.
So whatever it is, but yeah, I remember we did go over it, but
yeah, we did. My bad, everybody.
It's not your bad. You obviously brought that up so that you could mention you went 3-0 in one.
That's not true.
It's 100% obvious. It's fine. I see right through you.
True.
All right. So I think we start at the University of Oregon, where Dan Lanning has become the new head coach. Dan Lanning, the Georgia defensive coordinator, 35 years old, coaching wonderkin. That means, in my estimation, we had 6 top 15 jobs come open this year. 2 of them were taken by 35-year-old coordinators who have never been a head coach. That's very interesting. But Dan Lanning is now at Oregon. Your first thoughts, Casey Smith?
I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't care. Is that bad? Is that a bad thing to say?
I guess it's not. If that's what you want to say, you can go ahead and say it.
I mean, listen, like we had so many jobs open and we talked about it, but like when you and when Lincoln Riley gets hired elsewhere, and when you've got all these like bigger name coaches moving around, you've got Brian Kelly coming down from Notre Dame, like a fine hire, I guess. But to me, it's just like we've had such splash hires that it's just like, okay, we had these jobs open, somebody had to take them.
But this can become so when Oklahoma had their last job opening and they hired Lincoln Riley, who was a coordinator who had never been a head coach, they did so because they thought he was a young superstar coach in the making. And that's what's happening here as well.
Yeah.
Oregon believes it has identified the next superstar coach. It's Dan Lanning, who was at Georgia since 2019 as the defensive coordinator, since 2018 as a linebackers coach. The only thing I will say is I don't mind trying to go after gold. I don't mind trying to catch a star on the rise.
That's true.
But you have to be careful when hiring a defensive coordinator based on what he has done coordinating Kirby Smart's defense, because it's the same thing as hiring a guy who was Nick Saban's defensive coordinator, because Saban ultimately is a defensive guy and Saban recruits the top talent in the country. Sometimes when you hire Saban's defensive coordinator, you get Kirby Smart, who turns out great, or you get Jeremy Pruitt, who turns out to be a dummy. So you got to be very careful there. Now, Lanning has produced top 10 defenses at Georgia, who's had the best defensive talent in the country, but that doesn't mean he's not a good coach. So I understand what they're doing. It's worth a shot. I do wonder if they've now hired a 3rd straight coach who will leave Oregon as soon as a big job in the South comes open.
Yeah, and that's now the new thing at Oregon. I don't remember like when Clemsoning was a thing. We need to come up with something with that. I know we talked about it a couple weeks ago too. It's just a risk to me when you hire a coordinator. Sometimes it works out like Dave Aranda. Sometimes it doesn't work out when you hire a G5 coach going to a Power 5 school. You will see, but they had to fill the job. I mean, at the end of the day, that's who they think is the right move. fine. It doesn't like jump off the page or something that I care that much about right now. Now I could eat my words come middle of the next season and Oregon is blowing people away. But as of right now, to me, it's just kind of like, meh.
I need Jack in here for this, and good, he has returned. So more interesting than the actual hire, because we will see in 3 or 5 years how good the hire is the whirlwind of reporting around it. So Friday, an AJC reporter reported that Dan Lanning will be the next coach of Oregon. And immediately, 10 other reporters checked with their sources at Oregon or somewhere and said, nope, this is not true. No, not true. Folded their arms, said, no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Next day, we found out the report was true, and Oregon is introducing him on Monday. Now, kudos to the AJC reporter for not going on a worldwide fuck you tour. I was right. You were wrong. But the 10 reporters who loudly shouted him down, these people should be shamed, right, Jack? I mean, these people just they let Oregon lie to them, and they just put it out there as fact.
Well, yeah, that's like goes back to who's the source, and are they, because it's kind of like the Adam Schefter, Cliff Kingsbury, Oklahoma thing. Like at the end of the day, journalists are used for contract negotiations. Maybe like it was at the final stage, but then the AJC got something from somebody, but then the agent of Dan Lanning was like, no, we haven't gotten what we want yet. Put it out there. Or maybe he was hired at that point. That's one of those things. It's like, what happened? No one will ever know, because those journalists are so like proud of their sources and proud of their profession. They never tell us behind the scenes. They wouldn't go inside journalism for us, inside baseball. It would be interesting, I guess, but it was weird. It was really weird.
But for a reporter to come out Friday and say, check with Oregon, no, this isn't true. He's not hired at all. No. That reporter should be forced to come back the next day and say, Oregon actually lied to me. Yeah. Oregon was bullshitting me, and I just said it.
And Bruce Feldman, like, he was the one who said the story. It's not true. His tweet yesterday was also kind of here. Now hearing that Friday AJC report that UGA DC Dan Lanning is expected to become the next Oregon head coach was in fact accurate. And then he said, per source. So the whole thing it wrapped up the weirdest coaching cycle that we'll ever see. And I mean, rightfully so, in a very weird reporting way.
Obviously we don't break news here at Barstool Sports, and we are not, I guess we could technically. If I got lied to like that, and if I got bamboozled and I was made to look like an asshole, I would tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I know I would. I'd be like, listen, here are the receipts. I might even do like a minute-long emergency press conference. Like, here are my receipts. I got fucking lied to. This is not my fault. Because there is that, like, somewhere along the way, we don't know the inside scoop and how it happened, but somebody got lied to for an agenda. And if I was one who got lied to for an agenda and I got publicly blasted for it, you better bet I'd be spitefully telling everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there on the record. ADs, agents, everybody, you probably shouldn't tell me something.
No, definitely not. Be
better off not telling me, because I'm going to tell everybody immediately. I'm probably going to add like a lie to it at the end of it. I'm going to be like, Lane Kiffin was seen with Miami AD talking about the job. And by the way, he said, fuck you, Ole Miss. Like, I'm going to add something. I'm going to add
sure.
my own spin to it.
Haven't we like broken fake news on this podcast?
I would love to break fake news.
We broke
broken
Caleb fake Williams. News. Caleb Williams started.
Yeah, we broke the Caleb Williams news. I feel like, but that's the thing with Twitter now. We could really make a good off-season shtick about that if we wanted to. Although I guess people would hate us for it, but people already hate us. So I would definitely, these people that are the sources, and I understand, like, especially like Schefter's and Rappaport's, like those guys who have made unbelievable livings doing it. It's too much pressure for me. I would want to tell everybody right away. Like, I wouldn't want to source check or fact check. I would just be like, guess who just told me this?
It's much better to work at a place with low expectations where we really don't have to do anything.
Like
Mike
last
Leach is-
week when I had to like jump off the podcast on Sunday because I had to go make the welcome to the Arizona Bowl video for Boise State. Like it was just so hard for me to just not say on the podcast, like, hey guys, Dan and Dave need me to make a video for Boise State. Like even just small minor details like that, like let alone like so-and-so is getting traded and the entire NFL is changing. All right, Brandon, 2022 is coming up, which sounds crazy. I cannot believe it's already 2022, but New Year's resolutions, everybody starts trying to think about how they can better themselves, how they can make themselves better for the next year. And you know what it's time to do? It's time to think about improving your student debts because no one likes student debts, not a single person.
When you get to the end of a year, it's time to start thinking about what you did right that year, what you did wrong. It's time to think about resolutions. What better way to start a new year than fix your student debt problems?
Yes, and it only takes 2 minutes. You can go to On Earnest. It only takes 2 minutes to check your rate. There's never charge any fees, not even late fees. So you can go and look at what your new rate may be. So if you're thinking, what should I do in 2022? Maybe go get a new rate for your student debt loans. Allow Earnest to help. They actually care about you, and you don't have to go into a place to do it because we know now these days you don't want to go to a bank. You don't have to go sit and talk to somebody. You can do it all online, and they have an in-house team that is ready to help, and you can talk to a real life person from home, Brandon.
A real life person?
Real life person from home. And here's the thing, we say this about Earnest all the time, and I can't say this enough. We all love free money. Free money is pretty great, I would say.
Big
So
fan
right
of free
now,
money.
I mean, who doesn't love free money? So Earnest is offering our listeners right now $100 cash bonus when you refinance your student debt at earnest.com/barstool. It isn't available in all states, but it's available in most. So go check that out. Once again, $100 cash bonus when you visit earnest.com/barstool to refinance your student loan. Ready for me to do
the thing, Casey? Do the thing. Do the thing.
Ready?
Just not do the thing.
I'm going to do it. Okay. Visit earnest.com/barstool for more details. Not available in all states. Terms and conditions do apply. Earnest student loan refinancing made by Earnest Operations LLC, NMLS 1204917, California financing law license number 6054788 at 535 Mission State, San Francisco, California 94105. Visit earnest.com/licenses for a full list of licenses. I stopped whispering because I couldn't do it anymore.
Right. Mike Leach's bowl take. Yesterday, Mike Leach had a doozy of a press conference, and he was asked about playing Texas Tech. You're mad about his take. I think you're wrong. Halfway.
That's a shock.
I think you're halfway. No. I think everybody's halfway wrong on this because I think they're reacting to it the wrong way. I don't think he's talking to you and me. But before I get to that, he was asked about Texas Tech, and he said, yeah, it's a great school, great team. Can't wait to play them. They also still owe me $8 million, and hopefully they bring the check to Memphis. Mike Leach is the best. I mean, he's great. That's fantastic.
God, I want to live inside of his brain. I don't know if I could even handle a full day, like just a little bit. Like a full day might be too much, but the stuff he rattles off is like stand-up comedian stuff sometimes.
I'm looking up his full quote because I want to quote it and I want to get it right. Mike Leach bold quote here. So basically saying,
You want me to read it?
yeah, would you? If you have it pulled up, please read it.
All right. So this is from Andy Costa from the Clarion Ledger. He quoted it on his
worst newspaper in America. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. You owe it to your team, you owe it to your fans, you owe it to your coaches, and it's the most bizarre thing in the world to me. Mike Leach on players opting out of bowl games is one of the and this was another quote, is one of the biggest absurdities that I've seen.
There's more to it, though. There's more to that quote saying these guys think they're going to have a 10-year career and they believe this game is going to get in the way of that or something like that. And that's the part I kind of wanted to talk about because I don't think he's talking to us. And when he puts it out there, when he says it, every 40-year-old sports writer in the world wants to, on the player's behalf, get mad. They want to get angry and they want to say, oh, he can't say this is wrong. Players should be able to do it. Coaches get to do it. I think what he's saying, and if I'm reading too far between the lines, fine. I think he's saying is, guys, you only have so many games to play in college football. You practice with your brothers. You work with your brothers. You practice with your coaches. You work with them. opting out of this one game at the end of all of this doesn't make sense. I believe that's what he's saying. He's saying, the finiteness of college football, giving up your last game in the long run, you're not going to enjoy it. That's what I believe he's saying to these guys. Casey, what do you think about this whole thing?
I do. I hadn't thought about it from that exact angle of the way you just said it. I do agree because obviously, you look back at plenty of guys who think that they're going to make it in the league and then they don't. And I'm sure they want to be able to have that last game, or, kids who skip their last semester of high school to go to college. And it's like, damn, he didn't even get to go to prom. I get that. My problem is when coaches come out that make millions and millions of dollars. And I know the NIL has helped. And I truly believe that has made a huge leap into, being able to say, okay, these players are compensated. But if these guys, knowing that if they get hurt in these bowl games that at the end of the day don't matter. I mean, yes, I understand there are games that do matter, but these random bowl games in the middle of this December that don't, if they get hurt, they could never see a cent for something that they've spent their entire life trying to make. To me, it's like, all right, if you don't want them to opt out, then give them compensation to play, or let them get the insurance to be able to play. And I know that is only a small amount of players that actually probably applies to. I just hate when coaches, we're looking at, what did you say, Jack, earlier this year? There's like $500 million of dead money in college coaching this year because of different opt-outs and contracts. And it's like, get the fuck out of here with this. If they don't want to play that shitty bowl game in Shreveport, no offense, I don't think that they should have to.
No, they shouldn't have to. And I'm on team players as far as it comes to opting out. But I do think, I wonder if there's been some sort of overcorrection where more players are opting out than really need to. Like if I'm a first or second round pick, I'm not going to put my knee in jeopardy against Texas Tech and Memphis. I'm just not going to do it. But if I'm a day 3 pick, or I'm a day, if I'm somebody who's maybe going to be an undrafted free agent, how many players go in the draft every year? 200? I think we'll have a lot more than 200 players opt out of bowl games. So I think there's been an overcorrection here at some point, whereas players who believe they're going to have this status, that game could probably be more important to them than they think.
I agree with that. You're right. I guess it depends on where you're falling in the draft. There's also the argument that could be made that if you are a day 3 guy, or you are a guy that's kind of even on the bubble of being drafted, and you go out and you have some massive game, albeit some shitty bowl game, and I keep saying that, like, no disrespect, every bowl game I understand is a big deal to that bowl. But it's if you go out and you do put on a great performance, then potentially you could get more attention from scouts. I totally understand that. I just think when it comes from, and I love Mike Leach, I love Mike Leach's quotes, but when it comes from these coaches who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's like, oh, well, these guys owe it to their team. It's like, come on, man. Like, they just want to go to the league and make the type of money that they think.
I agree. And I agree, like, probably 75% with you, Casey, and then 25% with Brenner, 50-50. But, like, there's thousands of football players. There's only 50 or so coaches that are worth a shit. So, like, even if they were allowed to be paid money, they wouldn't be paid much. Their market value isn't that high. It's not like, so, like, the coaches, that's because, like, just what the market's deemed, and that's, but yeah, I think all of us agree that if the player doesn't want to play, he shouldn't play. But Mike Leach is right. You may end up regretting it.
Definitely. And you see a lot of times too, when guys leave college early to go to the draft, and then they come back and get their degree later on because maybe their NFL career didn't pan out, or, they decide they just want to go back. So there's definitely that retrospect outlook, I'm sure. I think every time these bowl arguments come up, it's just like, yeah, obviously Bryce Young is not going to opt out of a game that really, really matters to him. But if a guy wants to opt out of a bowl game on December 21st because he wants to get ready for the draft, I don't care. Now, if you want to get mad because you're a fan, whatever, I can tell you right now, if somebody from A&M wants to opt out, you're not going to hear a peep from me because it's not my career. It's not my injury. It's not my future.
Why does the bowl, like, if you're on a team and you're on Florida, why don't you opt out once you have 2 losses? Because those games don't matter after that. That's why, like, what
it is going to start eating into the season soon.
Yeah, and and then that's where, you know, it is this whole snowball effect of you know, name and image and likeness to paying the players and what do you do with Title IX? And I get that. There's never a true answer. It will suck if all of a sudden you see like a team lose 2 games early in the season and then you start losing your players. But it's like at, you know, Alabama loses to A&M a few, you know, way back in the season. They're the number 1 team in the college football playoff. So you don't know what's going to necessarily happen unless I guess you lose 4 games off the bat. To me, it's like, it's not my career. It's not my career. It's not my decision. It's like, yeah, as a team, like I'm glad Johnny Manziel played his last bowl game because I got to watch it as a fan. If he would have opted out, I wouldn't have cared because it would have been like, it's not my life. It's not my job or my body that I'm putting in jeopardy.
I think we've already kind of seen the mid-season opting outs. Like we saw it maybe just with coaching changes. Like when I think it was a week or 2 before Edo was officially fired, you had a bunch of players who were clearly playing through injuries. So all of a sudden, I think in one Sunday, 7 or 8 players, and several of them being massive, were like opted for season-ending injuries and just were like, we're done with the season. So I think that's the new opting out, because I think every player at this point worth a shit is playing through some kind of injury that they probably should not be. So I think that in that way, we started to see it start a little bit.
Well, and there's also too, before we move on, there's also too, and I know you can't guarantee money like you can in the NBA because there's way more NFL players, but you start to see like, you know, it's like Baker Mayfield right now. And I know it's like, he said he's like the most beat up he's ever been, but he's going to keep playing because he's playing for a contract. It's like these guys in college know that even if they make it to the league, even if they keep playing, like they don't get that guaranteed money. So why put your body on the line for one last game? If you just like, you just want to make that check. And until they can change all of that, I think we're going to continue to see it.
So moving on a little bit, Duke has hired Mike Elko as Texas A&M defensive coordinator. What are you doing?
I'm sad. I'm praising Jesus, hoping that I dreamt that. I do not want him to leave.
Yeah.
It's a sad moment for me. Congrats, I guess. I know he's probably making, I don't know what the difference in the salary is, Katie, you might. I just don't necessarily think it's a good move, to be completely honest, but I'm biased.
Here's the thing. And a lot of times we get into this where we believe that a coordinator position at A&M or Clemson is better than a head position somewhere else. And that's just not ever true because there are 65 Power 5 jobs in this country. And then if you add BYU and Notre Dame, there's 67 really good jobs in this country. And no coach, I don't think any coach worth his salt. And there's some, but I don't know how many coaches start their career and start coming up the ladder and being like, boy, I hope I get to be the number 2 guy somewhere. I think ultimately, I know it's Duke and I know it's going to be hard. And I know there's a lot going on, but Mike Elko wants to prove that he can be a head coach.
I agree with that. Now, hear me out. And this is not just because it's A&M. And obviously I want Mike Elko to stay at A&M because we saw how good that defense has gotten and whatever else. But like you look at also like somebody like Dave Aranda, who did stay as a coordinator for a long time under a team who continued to excel and then goes and gets a job. I mean, I think we can all agree Baylor's a better job than Duke, right?
Right.
I mean,
yeah, certainly.
So it's like, I understand Duke is a job and I understand you want to be the head guy, but to me, it's like, why not stay? You talk about A&M. And again, this could be any school, like XYZ school, but we are talking about A&M because it's Mike Elko. Like you're looking at the potential number 1 recruiting class. You're looking at, you know, they took a step backwards last year, but you know, they're still in the conversation for the SEC next year. It's all like, why not stay maybe 1 more year, 2 more years, and then jobs that are much bigger and much easier to succeed at than Duke become open. Now that's me being selfish. I get that, well, but like Dave Aranda did it and it worked out. Like Venables is the same way. Like we'll see what happens. Duke doesn't necessarily jump off the page. It's like, I have to take this job.
No, but I don't think Duke is the dead end we pretend it is. I mean, Cutcliffe got close to breaking through a couple times there. Cutcliffe ain't a great coach. And then, I mean, one of the greatest college coaches of all time launched his career. Steve Spurrier went to Florida from Duke. Steve Spurrier went to Duke in the mid-'80s, got him rolling a little bit, went to Florida, became a legend. Elko could spend 3-4 years there, get up to that 7-8 win level. All of a sudden, he's a hot commodity, and he's the next coach at Georgia, or he's the next coach at Alabama, or he's the next coach at Florida. You know, something like that. So, I get it. I don't hate the man. Although this did produce, and Katie, I see you want to talk. I'm going to get to you. This produced on Message Board Geniuses, the great Twitter account. one of the great message board posts I've ever seen. I don't know if you saw it, but an A&M fan railing on Mike Elko because of how selfish he is to leave this team and take a head coaching job at Duke. You guys are a cult.
Listen, first of all, I'm susceptible to cults. We all know that. I mean, I don't even know, Brandon, if you've seen that I have we talked about this. Like
you're cult friendly. I know.
I'm cult friendly. Okay. But A&M, the further that I've gotten away from College Station, the longer I've been on the East Coast, the more I've covered college football from a Barstool standpoint, as opposed to like a network standpoint. I have to say, I love A&M with my entire life. We are a cult. We are. The Texags message boards, like, I talk to Billy Lucci all the time. Like, Billy runs that thing. Billy is the Dave Portnoy of Texags, and he's like, boy, some of the stuff that comes out of here is nuts. But I think it's just college football in general. People just like to make fun of A&M a little bit more. That's all.
You guys make it easy.
Did you see what Dan tweeted at me yesterday?
Yeah, about all the rings?
Yeah, what did I deserve that for yesterday?
I don't know. Katie, did you have something that I skipped over? I apologize.
Yeah, no, it was like when you look at the coaches, when you like evaluate the head coaching job at Duke, if you were a first-time head coach, you spent a decent amount of time as a coordinator, OC or DC, would you rather go a place like Tennessee that you'll get all the eyes and stuff, but it has a really big, the bar is really high? Or would you rather go somewhere like Duke where the bar is really low, and then if you're the person to turn it around, like which one would you, maybe don't ignore the names Tennessee and Duke, but the two types of program?
I don't mind the question because I think most people would choose Tennessee. However, what you're signing up for with a big program like that is immediate expectations. It is if you don't win big in 2 to 3 years, you're out of there. Like, I wonder if Jeremy Pruitt had to do over again. Would he go to Tennessee? Would he jump in that meat grinder, or would he like to coach it somewhere like I don't know, Wake Forest or something like that, Virginia? I don't know the answer. He was an idiot. He was always going to fail anyway. But there is something to be said. Like these coordinators, like Marcus Freeman, for example, first head coaching job anywhere is going to be Notre Dame. Dan Lanning's first head coaching job anywhere is going to be Oregon. That's not easy. Not obviously you would rather do that,
right?
But Elko, Elko made a right decision here. And for bigger than Mike Elko is what's happened at Virginia. They hired Tony Elliott, Clemson's offensive coordinator. And whether that works or not, for the first time in a while, we're going to see Dabo Swinney, who went 9-3 this year. He has to get off the mat and be better than that next year, and he has to do it without his defensive coordinator and his offensive coordinator. And
his offensive coordinator is in the same league as him, too.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very interesting. And I have, I want to talk about Clemson in a little bit, but I again, it's selfish because I did not want Mike Elko to leave. You see the way that we've been just talking about Dave Aranda over and over and over. And it's like, well, for so long, why was he not a head coach? I think that he is so successful, even at a school like Baylor, because he was such a good coordinator for so long. When, you see Cliff Kingsbury was a good offensive coordinator for a couple of years, one solid year at A&M, and then went and failed at Texas Tech because he wasn't ready to be a head coach. So that's just where you can go either way, I guess, with it. We'll see what happens. It's more just that I didn't want him to leave A&M because, like, the old school wrecking crew is back. But we all know that.
So, and now for some serious news.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
We've spent a lot of this podcast talking about fun things, talking about things that are just great ways to occupy your time, like college football and video games and stickers and stuff like that. But boys, if you're listening, let's talk about that thing. Let's talk about your penis. Let's talk about your dick. Let's talk about your goober. Let's talk about your tallywhacker, your pecker, your Johnson, your cock,
no,
your penis. Let's talk about that thing that gets the job done, but maybe it's not getting the job done. Maybe it's going too fast. Maybe it's like a stock car driver. Maybe it's like a excite bike when you're riding along and you just get too hot too quick and you don't finish the race. That's frustrating. And you want to think about baseball. You want to recite the Pledge of Allegiance backwards, and you want to last longer. But you keep failing. Well, guess what, boys? Perk those pricks up. Let's talk about Roman swipes. They are a clinically proven way to last longer in bed. They're effective. easy to use, and fast acting, but don't require a prescription. Jack, weren't you saying you just hated getting a prescription for this stuff?
Yeah, it was the bane of my existence, man. It really was.
I don't want to have to worry with a doctor when it comes to my dick.
Yeah,
Roman,
it's
they can
awkward.
They can ship swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipes packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipes out of the packet, swipe it on, and let it dry, and you're good to go. That's it. Again, lasting longer in bed is possible, boys. Roman Swipes is going to help you do it. Go to getroman.com/Walker. That's my name, because when you think of lasting longer in bed and getting more out of your dick, think Brandon Walker. Think Brandon Walker. Think about this face. You can get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's getroman.com/Walker. We have a Heisman winner. It is Bryce Young from Alabama. The first time a team goes back-to-back since all the way back in 2017 and 18. Alabama goes back-to-back with Devontae Smith and now Bryce Young. I don't think there's any surprise here. Bryce Young was the winner, presumptive winner. I think it was in doubt all the way up until last week, but then he nailed the door shut with that performance against Georgia. So he won. What happened behind him, I thought, was very interesting. And it's going to maybe cause a rant here. But Aidan Hutchinson finished second. That's such bullshit. That is such big bullshit. Aidan Hutchinson's a good player. No, Aidan Hutchinson's a great player. Fantastic. But he finished second. Will Anderson of Alabama finished fifth. And they're the same player. And Will Anderson has better stats. Second to fifth. Aidan Hutchinson finished in second over Kenny Pickett, who had a miraculous year at Pitt. I just over CJ Stroud, over these guys. It just shows that there is a hidden Michigan voting block that kind of ruins the Heisman Trophy for me. It's what stole the Heisman from Peyton Manning in 1997. No chance Charles Woodson should have won that Heisman. His stats weren't even that good. He had one punt return touchdown. He had 283 yards of offense, and we gave it to him. He had 6 interceptions. Wasn't even that good of a year. We gave it to him because he played for Michigan. Remember when Jabril Peppers finished in top 5? He wasn't even a good college football player because he plays for Michigan. He had a name. He finished, and now Aidan Hutchinson finished second. Will Anderson fifth. What is happening? Why do we have to kiss Michigan's ass every time somebody comes up?
You know, the more and more that we talk about Michigan on this podcast, and thank God Jack and I were on the right side of history on this one, you just fucking hate Michigan.
I don't hate Michigan at all. I don't hate Michigan at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. Spot the lie in what I just said.
Well, Jabril Peppers was a good football player.
Huh?
He didn't deserve to be top 5, but he was a good college football player.
I know there are 5 Jabril Pepper linebackers a year.
May I make the argument about Aidan Hutchinson, though? Now, we all know.
Hold on. Jack's thinking. Tell me who you'd rather have in college, Nakobe Dean or Jabril Peppers?
Well, I mean, I would have to go look at the stats. Like, I mean, who would I rather have? Probably Nakobe Dean, yeah. But you're right. There is a Michigan bias, but there's no argument to be had for Aidan Hutchinson ahead of Will Anderson. There's just not. There's none. I don't like it. There's none.
And he's significantly ahead of him. Go ahead, Casey.
I have an argument.
What is it?
That depending on how we define the Heisman, and I understand Bryce Young was the best player in the country this year, Aidan Hutchinson was by far the most important player on that team, by far. There's no question. And Aidan Hutchinson, without them, I mean, and yes, they had it. Oh no, Brandon hates this, but this is the same argument every single year with any MVP. Doesn't matter if it's the Heisman, if it's the NFL, it's whatever. Depends on how you define it. Aidan Hutchinson was the most important player on Michigan's team this year. Voters clearly awarded him for that.
Is he the most important player in Michigan? I would say, yeah. Is he by far? I mean, Ojabo on the other side helps him out a lot.
I mean, but like Aidan Hutchinson has like school records for what he did this year. And I mean, what he did against Ohio State.
But his school records pale in comparison to Will Anderson's stats this year.
But Will Anderson wasn't the most important person on his team this year.
That could be argued.
Thank you. That's my To be completely honest with you, that's why I hate any type of MVP award, because no one will just come out and say, this is why we're doing it. It's like, is Tom Brady the best player in the NFL most years? Yeah, but is he the most important player on his team all the time? No, it's the same thing with the Heisman. Like Bryce Young, first of all, I said before even championship weekend that I thought he won it in the Iron Bowl because of the way he played down the stretch, but also because he was going to be really the only quarterback. I mean, Kenny Pickett is not second because he doesn't play for Michigan, which is your point.
Yeah.
That's your point. But also Michigan is in the playoff. Aidan Hutchinson is the most important player on a team that's playing in the playoff.
So why wasn't Desmond Ridder a part of this?
I agree with that is one that I cannot make an argument for, but I can make an argument for Aidan Hutchinson.
Desmond Ridder was eighth in voting.
Yeah. So we have the Heisman winner. It is Bryce Young, so he'll get to do all the funny, lame, stupid Heisman House commercials that won't be funny, and they'll play every single commercial break. That and Fansville. Fansville, by the way, can we be done with that soon?
Yeah, I'm done with it. I'm honestly.
What Larry Culpepper is these days?
Oh, what do you think he's doing?
Just waiting for a call, I would assume, from Dr. Pepper.
I would assume so.
Get back in the game, Larry.
Who was it? Donovan McNabb that did the soup commercials?
Oh yeah, well yeah, he was one of them. Terrell Owens did one. Yeah.
Love those commercials.
At least they switch it up. Like compared to the new Facebook Meta ad, which is the same thing every time. At least Dr. Pepper has new ads. And they switch it up. Like
so we have a Heisman winner, but now it's time to award our lifetime Heismans. So I am 42 years old. Casey is 37. Sure. Katie is 19, and Jack is he's somewhere between 28 and 58.
Are we? I mean, I know Katie's obviously the youngest. Katie, you're 20. You're 20 years younger than Brandon.
You're 22?
I'm 23.
So 19.
Jack, what are you for real?
24.
You're 24 years old?
We do this all the time. This happens once every 3 months on this podcast.
There's no chance you're 24 years old.
Okay.
You're not 24. You mean my window 28 to 58 was wrong?
So wrong. You were 4 years off.
Jack, I will say you've been at Barstool for so long that it does feel like
I graduated college in 2019, like 2 years ago.
I know it's crazy, Brandon. I know, but the age does not exist at Barstool. It truly doesn't. It's like everyone is the same age. Like, who's the youngest person at Barstool that's not an intern? Who's the youngest? Is it Robbie Fox still?
Oh no, a little Sass, right?
Oh, Sass stuff. He's like can't even drink it.
Brianna's pretty young too.
Oh yeah, well, I think she just turned 22. I just feel like it'll always be Robbie Fox. Robbie Fox will always be the youngest person. So Katie's 23, Jack is 24, I am 33. Mm-hmm. Brandon, you are 42.
And for the sake of my college football knowledge, I'm basically 3, so I can be the young one.
All right.
But okay, so we're giving our number one Heisman of our lifetime.
Yeah.
Since we were born.
I said, give me the Heisman of your lifetime. It can be a guy that won. It can be somebody, however you want to take it, the Heisman of your life and the 5 you would invite to your ceremony. I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first.
So first of all, I am holding my ceremony in the third room of Anthony's Good Food Market, or Anthony's Market in downtown West Point, Mississippi, which is across the railroad track from the Brandon Walker Smoking Lounge. You got to stop at Frank's Package Store and get you some wine because they don't sell wine and liquor. They do sell beer at Anthony's, but we're going to get us some catfish with some catfish with crawfish sauce. We're going to get some fried crawfish tails, and we're going to get probably just a nice ribeye at Anthony's. It's going to be delicious. And that's the ceremony. We're going to have it there on Main Street in West Point, Mississippi. Here are my 4 invitees that are not my lifetime Heisman winner. Number 5 is Danny Wuerffel from Florida. Danny Wuerffel might be my first favorite quarterback that didn't play at Mississippi State. The fun and gun for Florida. Yes? What are y'all doing?
Casey and I interviewed Danny Wuerffel on this podcast feed in 2017. So just... you can continue now, but I just wanted to bring up that memory.
First ever interview, and I was like hiding in like a radio room and in like where the Sirius headquarters were. It's very bizarre.
I love Danny Wuerffel. Nice. I've actually interviewed him too. I was the sports editor at the Northwest Florida Daily News. He was actually from Fort Walton Beach High School. I was able meet up with him a couple times. They actually give a trophy down there, the Werfel Trophy, which is given every year to the college football player who does the most outside the lines. It's actually a good trophy. Anyway, Danny Werfel's number 5. My kids are killing each other. I don't know if y'all can hear it.
I can.
Number 4, my only guy that didn't win a Heisman, but he should have. It's not Peyton Manning. It is, in fact, Vince Young. Vince Young not winning a Heisman is one of the biggest pieces of bullshit ever in college football. I know Reggie Bush was the same year, but Reggie Bush was a Heisman or was a highlight factory. He was great. He was great. He was great, but he wasn't Vince Young. Vince Young should have won that Heisman. He's my number 4. Number 3, I assume I'm not the only guy, but it's hard not to say Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, just an all-time iconic college football player, and he is my number 3. My number 2, since I'm the old guy, I decided to spotlight older players that you guys won't have. My number 2 of my all-time Heisman is Bo Vincent Jackson, Auburn, and I hate Auburn, but 1985. Bo Jackson is one of the athletes that's lost to history. Bo Jackson, in the late 80s, the biggest stars in the athletic world were Michael Jordan, of course, Mike Tyson, Bo Jackson. That was the top 3. And they were all probably the equal amounts of famous. Bo Jackson was just as famous as Michael Jordan was until 1991 when Jordan won titles and Bo hurt his hip and lost his career. Bo Jackson, number 2. And my number 1, my Heisman, the guy that I'm inviting and I'm handing my lifetime Heisman to, he won his award in 1988. Barry Sanders is the craziest thing I've ever seen in college football. Barry Sanders, 39 touchdowns, number 1, Oklahoma State. Barry Sanders, my Heisman winner for my lifetime.
Brandon, I cannot make this up whatsoever. I made these notes while I was drinking coffee. Can you see this?
Barry Sanders, number 1.
Barry Sanders, 1988, the year I was born.
That was going to be yours?
Yeah, my number 1 was Barry Sanders. Now my others are different, but Barry Sanders is my number 1.
Okay, well, you get to go now.
No, well, I'll go backwards now. I will say, as I mentioned earlier, Johnny Manziel he is my Heisman Trophy winner, but I didn't want to be chalk, and I didn't want all these people who are like, how many times are we going to talk about Johnny? So I'd like it on record. Johnny is on my list. He's just not on this list, so I don't have to hear the haters bitch about it. Okay. You ruined it earlier. I'm retroactively giving my 5th pick, my 5th invite to Michigan's quarterback, Tom Brady.
He wasn't even good in college.
Doesn't matter. It
does matter. Why are we giving? You're just
retroactively.
You're basing it on what he did in the pros.
That's true. Okay, so I'll take that one off, but I want that one on record that I also had that. Joe Burrow would be there. I think Joe Burrow, obviously, it's recency bias, but just everything that he was able to do. Now, here's my question. He was not there, or I'm too old or too young, but I would invite Dion Sanders to my high school.
That's fine. He played in your life?
No, he did not in college.
He was in the 89 draft, wasn't he?
I thought he was in the 87 draft.
I'm almost certain he was in the 89 draft. I think he was in the – hold on. I'm going to look up Dion Sanders. Dion Sanders, I think 88 was his last year in college football. College stats. When were you born?
October of 88.
He his last season was 1988. He was playing when you were born.
Okay. So we have Joe Burrow, Dion Sanders. We have Vince Young. Took that one from you. Desmond Howard, Barry Sanders.
Yours is very retro too. I wouldn't have gone as retro if I known you were going to do that.
Do you want me to go earlier?
No, I'm fine. Can we not make as much noise back there, boys? No? Okay.
Joe
flat out said no. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
No. Did they just say no?
Yes.
No, we're gonna not shut the fuck up. Sorry, shouldn't have sworn.
Sorry.
Johnny Manziel and Joe Burrow are obviously pretty early.
All right.
I didn't put Tim Tebow on it because I assumed that was too chalk. But granted, I don't remember watching Barry Sanders or Dion playing in college because I was literally in my mother's womb. But watching the highlights of Barry Sanders is incredible. I also had some honorable mentions: Peyton Manning, Bo Jackson, Vince Young on there. Andre Ware is up there just because he was
I don't know if you got the assignment, Casey.
What?
How could Bo Jackson be in your life? You were born in 88. He was gone. He won the 85 Heisman.
I know. That's why I said that I couldn't say him because he wasn't in my lifetime.
Jack Mack.
Andre Ware though I put him up there. He was 89, I believe. He just like the way he was playing like 20 years before his time was like if his style of play was like just 10 years later, like he would have just been one of the best athletes ever. He still is, but it's like he was before his time.
Jack.
Yeah.
All right.
Jack.
At number 5, I'm going to go with Dan Orlovsky from University of Connecticut. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of college football. Number 4, I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott from Ohio State. He's a great running back. I think we kind of forget how great he was. I was going to say potentially like Cardell Jones, but Zeke was the real reason that team put together. I mean, they were loaded everywhere, but Zeke comes in at number 4. Number 3, Joe Burrow. Truly one of the most magical seasons ever and just unbelievably talented. Number 2, Cam Newton. And number 1, my Heisman ever of all time for my lifetime is Johnny Football. He gets the Heisman just based upon everything.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. See, Katie, I assume that we're going to put out a graphic for this. I think it would actually be a very good interactive graphic. I would like it on record that at the bottom of mine, there is an asterisk that Johnny Manziel is actually my Heisman because Jack is right.
Why didn't you just take him?
Because I would just get ridiculed.
Okay, Casey, this was the one time you could just be a homer.
All right, fine. He's my number 1.
Oh, it's Jack's number 1.
Huh?
It's Jack's number 1.
Jack's not wearing an A&M shirt today, is he?
I'm not.
Katie stats.
Since my history of college football does not go back very far, going to the Heisman ceremony is Kenneth Walker, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Trevor Lawrence. And I know it's just only 4, but those are just who I could come up with. But
put Johnny in there.
My lifetime, I wasn't paying attention to college football.
You were alive.
But my college.
Casey has people that Casey has Dion and Barry Sanders that were playing when she was breastfeeding.
No, I was in my mom's womb.
Yeah, she didn't even start the season alive.
But I still don't know. Like I was not consciously watching college football in 2012. So I've never watched him on the field live.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't feel.
I mean, if we're playing by those standards, then yeah, my list should drastically change.
But yeah, no, but this is just a standard I made for myself because I don't know.
Who's your winner?
I this morning I was going over this. I was going to say Lamar Jackson, but I think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence for me because for my time of college football, he's just been the in and out top player on the field every year. I feel like he's just been the difference maker. The reason I said Lamar Jackson compared to like Joe Burrow because the same argument with Bryce Young is like he's surrounded by people. Whereas I feel like Lamar Jackson was the only talented person on the team. Like he carried the team in a lot of ways. He wasn't necessarily looking good. Like Justin Fields had really good receivers, whereas Lamar Jackson was himself and him. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence gets my Heisman.
Me being the only Tebow vote was interesting.
Did you see the video that Dukes made about asking people around the office who's their best college quarterback of all time?
No, I didn't.
Oh, Katie, don't out yourself.
I messed up perfectly and it backfired perfectly.
Nobody, Reggie Bush, nobody want to give him his Heisman back?
I thought about it. I mean, he deserves his Heisman back.
I don't know about the graphic here because we're going to put a graphic of our lifetime Heisman. People aren't going to get it. And when Vince Young is on it, they're going to be like, he didn't win the Heisman, you idiots. So it's going to be, that graphic's going to be a shit show.
We can put some little small description. Like
this graphic will be a shit show.
I will love it too. But
I made a cause list graphic and I had in the details, I was like, these are people who should win but won't, or because of dumb Heisman voters. So that's an explanation.
Oh, I got next show. I'll have our because list winner. We're gonna give our because award.
Oh, okay.
The causey.
The Cossie. I don't know. That sounded gross for some reason.
Well, causey's not gross, is it?
I don't know. It sounds like gauze, and gauze is kind of gross.
Casey.
Brandon.
We're coming off of one of Barstool's biggest events. We had the big fights the other night, or not unnecessary roughness. That's our show, but Rough and Rowdy.
It was always Jersey Jerry, baby.
I think the less said about that, the better. Anyway, we've got other, if you want to get in shape, because these guys did get to get in shape, and they were fighting, and they were getting ready, and they were working out for 6 weeks, and they got ready, and they look good. They look good. But guess what? You can do the same thing at home. Light Boxer is a product. I've got one in my basement. We have one at the work there. The office is what I'm trying to say. We have a Light Boxer. What it is, it's this thing that you put on the wall. You have an iPad that has music and has their apps and has all the programs, has pre-programmed workouts, and it has a series of lights, and you punch. It tells you where to punch, tells you how to punch, tells you the pattern, and you don't even realize how much you're working out because you're kind of going through and you're playing this game. And it stimulates your mind and it stimulates your body. And by the end of it, you're worn out, but it's a fun workout. Light Boxer is incredible.
It's the best. It's Dance Dance Revolution for working out. I love it. I wish that I had one at my apartment. I don't know why I don't, but I use it at the office all the time. And I will say it gets you in great shape. I mean,
well, do you know their exclusive music licensing partnerships? Do you know who they got?
Lil Wayne.
Well, they got Justin Bieber.
And Justin Bieber. And
Bieber, Post Malone, The Weeknd, Lil Wayne, and more.
I hope Machine Gun Kelly.
Legit trainers. They teach you combos and good form. They've got difficulty options. If you're an expert boxer like me, a good looking guy, a guy who gets a lot of pussy. If you're a guy like me, they've got the difficulty for you. But if you're like Jack and you've never done any of those things, they've got the difficulty options for you. You don't realize how hard you've worked until it's over, like being in the zone in your favorite sport. Head to lightboxer.com today to get $400 off any Lightboxer during our holiday deal. That's LITE boxer.com. This offer only comes around once a year, so don't wait. Again, lightboxer.com, $400 off one of these bad boys. Lightboxer. Before we get to our disappointing teams, our surprise teams, go ahead and lock in those in. There's just one little take maintenance I want to do with the college football playoff. Ever since last week, and Alabama fans had their time, and everybody that wanted to make fun of me for being wrong had their time, and that's fine. There seems to be this acceptance that Alabama returned to the top of the sport last week, and that's just how it's going to be. And Georgia, there's no world where Georgia can beat them. There's no world where anybody else can beat them. That is patently, absurdly wrong. Alabama peaked last week this year. Alabama peaked. That was their best performance of the season. If they can do that 2 more times, they will, in fact, win the national title. I don't know where the evidence is that they're going to do that 2 more times. They can win the national title without peaking again, but I think whoever wins that Georgia-Michigan game can beat Alabama, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Michigan. Yes, Jack.
Also, I mean, I don't want to ruin my take for when the preview, when we do our show and whatnot, but I mean, those 2 injuries to Jobs and Mechie are 2 massive injuries, especially Mechie, because I think Mechie opened up Jamison in ways, because Mechie, it was the guy coming back this year that we were like, oh, he's the wide receiver returning, and they got Jamison from Ohio State, which is ridiculous that he could have been on Ohio State this year. But those 2 injuries, maybe because they're just that much better than Cincinnati, that they won't buffer or bubble up in that game. But against Georgia again, or even Michigan, I mean, they killed Georgia on big explosive plays. Without Mechie, I mean, it could change a lot of things. So I mean, I don't know. It's just it should be interesting. Everyone, go ahead.
I think we're on the precipice of our most competitive playoff yet. I think we're on the precipice of, I think the semifinal between Georgia and Michigan is going to be a war. I think it's going to be a close game. And I think Cincinnati has a chance to play Alabama closer than we expect. I also think whoever survives Georgia, Michigan, will be in perfect position to beat Alabama. Alabama has played 13 games, and people act like they played one game. People act like the game against Georgia was everything we've seen from Alabama, and it's not. We've seen Alabama struggle against bad opponents this year a lot. So while they came to championship time in Atlanta and delivered, I would install them as a very, very slight favorite. But Georgia and Michigan are right behind them in my eyes. Don't think what happened last Saturday is an indication of what's going to happen in the future.
No, I mean, and obviously I've been on, Alabama saying I think they were going to make the playoff all year, but I agree with you. There's all of a sudden it was just like we're forgetting how good Georgia and Michigan have been. I understand Michigan lost to Michigan State. Fine. I also understand Alabama lost to Texas A&M. So when you look at the way that Alabama fans are acting, it's like, are we just forgetting that Georgia and Michigan are still there? And I disagree with you a little bit on the Cincinnati take. I think that they absolutely deserve to be there. I don't see a world where they can beat Alabama, or I don't even know where I would set my own line at this point. I think that that's going to probably be a beatdown. But Alabama fans all of a sudden like, oh, look, here we are. We're back. It's like, are you guys forgetting the other two teams that are playing later on that night? Because both of them are really fucking good.
All right. So now that we've seen a season, and we'll start to dole out our awards, our end of season awards. This week's podcast, by the way, I believe we're going to record it on Wednesday, so you'll get it a day later. Now that we don't have games to get ready for, really, we're just going to space them out a little bit. We're going to go the month of December and probably early January with 2 shows, and then we'll probably start cutting back. But so look for our next podcast one day later. What?
Don't we usually do our last 2-a-week podcast the night of the national championship?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We will indeed figure it out. So, all right, where are we at? So we have had a whole season, and we've had our thoughts about who the most disappointing teams would be. But now looking back, let's go ahead and award. I asked you all to bring your 3 disappointing teams and your 3 surprise teams this year. Not what you think, just looking at it. Go ahead and lock it in. So I've got my 3. Everybody have their 3? So here are my 3. I will go first. I think the most disappointing team in the country in 2021 was Iowa State. Iowa State preseason number 5 in the AP poll. Iowa State in a conference that was winnable, a very winnable conference. Oklahoma was down. Oklahoma State and Baylor, they play for the title. But listen, Iowa State was supposed to be better than them coming in. And Iowa State finished, 7-5. Brock Purdy was never very good this year. Their offense wasn't good. They just knew how to lose games. They lose to Iowa. I think Iowa State, pound for pound. And I use them because I know Indiana started number 17 and fell apart. I thought that was going to happen. I legitimately believed Iowa State would be in the national title race at the end. I thought the biggest game of the year was going to be Iowa State, Oklahoma. Iowa State's my number 1 most disappointing team. Number 2, the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies. I thought this was the year you were going to be national title contenders. You had Alabama at home. Alabama, I thought, was going to be down. As long as you take care of your business everywhere else, if you beat Alabama, you're going to be in the mix. And you did that. You beat Alabama, and you fell apart other places. You lose at home to Mississippi State. I love Mississippi State, but you can't be doing that if you pay your coach $100 million. You lose. You look absolutely worthless on the road against Ole Miss. And then you lose to the worst LSU team in a long time. I think that's massively disappointing from A&M. And my number 3, they ended up changing their coach. I thought Washington was going to be a playoff contender. I thought Washington was going to win the Pac-12. I thought Washington was going to be good. And they sucked from day one. They lost to Montana. They lost to Michigan. They never got it going. They couldn't score against anybody. They were god-awful garbage this season. Those are the 3 most disappointing teams in the country to me. Casey, who were the 3 most disappointing teams in the country in 2021?
Well, I'm going to take, I said Ohio State was going to be on there just because I knew, like I said, if they don't make the playoff, it's a disappointing season, but I wouldn't say that they obviously had a great season. So my number 1 team, you've already given all the reasons, and it is chalk, but it's just a fact, is that Texas A&M had the opportunity. We were sitting here last year at this time, mad that A&M didn't get in over Notre Dame. So, that's not just me being disappointed. That is what everybody has said. Like you said, the idea that A&M beat both teams in Alabama but lost to both teams in Mississippi. I mean, you're not national contenders. You're just absolutely not. So that's my number one. My number two would be in the same state, the University of Texas Longhorns. I have absolutely no idea what the fuck is going on in Austin. The fact that they didn't make a bowl game, and I know that, Texas fans are all like, oh, well, A&M still sunk. Like, enjoy bowl season from home. You had the worst season you've had since 1956. I understand a new coach, but if you are the University of Texas, you absolutely cannot play that way. And then my third would be Florida, because I do think that even though they started to fall apart a little bit at the end of last season, we still gave them a little bit of credit of, can Dan Mullen compete with Kirby Smart for the SEC East? Dan Mullen gets his ass fired. They were a laughing stock by the end of the season. So mine are Texas A&M, Texas, and Florida.
I like Florida. That's a good one. I should have said Florida. You're right. Florida's a good one. I don't know that I agree with Texas, but that's why we're doing these lists.
Well, I mean, disappointing as I think it's fucking hilarious, but from when you look at a fan base who assumes that they're the best every single year, and we're going into the season, them talking about they're going to be able to compete in the SEC and how, oh, they're going to come kill little brother A&M and Oklahoma, and you don't even make a bowl game. Yeah. Like, that sucks. Like, I mean, that's just a terrible season.
Jack.
All right, so I have two already mentioned, Texas and Florida. I agree wholeheartedly with Texas. I think Texas, I really have big expectations for Texas, all things considered. Florida, Casey wrapped it up perfectly. My third is a team that's not been mentioned, who I think has a case to be the most disappointing out of any team. Indiana. Yeah. Came into the season a top 15 team and finished the season, I think, 2-10 or 3-9. They got blown out. They got shut out by Rutgers at home. Like, Rutgers wasn't great this year, but they weren't good. And they got destroyed. Indiana, they had all the momentum after last season, the chance to really become like a football school, quote unquote. Obviously, they'll always be basketball, but yeah, Indiana was really disappointing to me. So those are my three.
They were 0-9. I'm looking at it right now. Indiana was 0-9 in conference play.
Yeah, they were awful. The only reason I didn't put them, because nationally they probably are the number one most disappointing team, because and remember how full of piss and vinegar their fans were in August, telling us to put Michael Penix in the top 5 quarterback list.
He may be the most disappointing player outside of, like, I guess DJ kind of figured it out, but we expected big things for DJ, and then
I think Spencer Rattler was probably the
Rattler. I was thinking, I was about to say we could do, like, next show, most disappointing players, because there's a few.
That's a long list this year. Katie, stats.
So yeah, I had a few that I mentioned. Indiana was my number one. I'm also going to say UNC. It's a little personal, but they were ranked number 10 preseason and just fell off. Like, I don't think we ever deserved to be number 10 for preseason, but that was just fell off. Entire offensive line returned and then just looked like shit. Other ones that I have were TCU. This may be on a national scale, but I remember, at least for this podcast, we talked a lot about TCU could be interesting. They have all the lines, they're lining up, and then Gary Patterson got fired. Then Arizona State, we also talked about them, the same thing with Washington. Like, even though they had all the NCAA issues that we knew were going to come down at some point, it looked like they had all their shit together and could be kind of sneaky good for the Pac-12. And then last one, I know this is just 3, but Oklahoma. Because I remember at the beginning of the season, we're like, they have the defense, they have the offense, or so we thought. Like, if they can't, with all these players and talent, go and win the Natty, will they ever be able to? So,
a good one.
I think if Oklahoma doesn't win the national title this year, Lincoln Riley has to leave. That's what I think.
Oh, hot take by you.
It's just
might be right.
I'm a big listen. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to college football. Surprise teams. Let's go in reverse order, because I've started every. Katie, why don't you start? Who are the biggest surprise teams of 2021?
I was going to go at the end and fill in ones that you guys don't mention.
Okay, we will go in the same order that we have been going. I will go first. I'm gonna honestly cheat, but these two teams are going to be on everybody's list, or they should be on everybody's list. And I don't know how you separate them at the top. but I think Michigan and Michigan State. Like Michigan State, probably the bigger surprise team because I don't know where 10-2 came from. Nobody expected 10-2. Their over-under was like 4. But Michigan walking through the Big Ten East and beating Ohio State and beating the playoff is just as big a surprise. I think the state of Michigan's Big Ten representatives are the biggest surprises of the year. I think and I don't think you separate them very much. I mean, who would have thought Michigan State would have been one of the biggest games of the season? It certainly was one of the biggest games of the season. So Michigan State / is right there at number 1. Number 2, to me, it's Pitt. And not just Pitt, Kenny Pickett, because this works to your idea too, Jack. Not just disappointing players, but who saw Kenny Pickett coming? Nobody. That guy was there for 9 years. He had 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, both the previous 2 seasons. And then this year he explodes, is a Heisman contender, and they go 11-2. They've been fantastic. I think they're going to win their bowl game. They've just been a great story this year. And number 3 is, to me, Baylor. I looked at the preseason top 25 today, and they got 0 votes, and they won the Big 12. Baylor is my number 3 surprise team. Casey Smith, go ahead. Why are you making that face? Same list? I can't see that.
Yeah,
you have to talk so I can put you in the middle.
That's the thing that Casey loves to do when we're on Zoom. She'll put up the notebook. Right. We can never see it.
If you talk, now we can see it. Put it up now. All right. So we got
Baylor, Michigan, and Pitt.
Baylor, Michigan, and Pitt. Yeah. I mean, it's not – there's no real surprise here.
I guess when I put it too close, sorry, everyone. The reason I didn't put Michigan State, and I under exactly what you're saying, that going 10-2, giving Mel Tucker that huge contract, it's like when they beat Michigan, I was like, oh shit, like this could be it. But then just the way that they played against Ohio State, like that, it was just like, Michigan, as much as I love them all season, the fact that preseason I would not have put them in the playoff. I would have, did I put them in the playoff? Who did
I'm almost certain you didn't.
I know I didn't put Ohio State, so maybe I just didn't have a Big Ten team in.
You didn't have Michigan in, for sure. Yeah. I don't think you had a Big Ten team in.
That must have been it. So, but
didn't you have Alabama and A&M in?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Clemson and Oklahoma, LOL at that.
Yeah.
So Michigan obviously being there, Pitt for the same reasons you mentioned, Brandon. I mean, the fact that, the ACC was going to be different this year. Kenny Pickett should have probably been the number 2 Heisman Trophy vote, but we've already talked about that. And then, as much as it pains me to say, because I hate Baylor, Baylor definitely deserves to be on there because Dave Aranda, when we've talked about him so much. Plus, I will say that Baylor for me has moved so far past the Art Briles shenanigans and scandal and that dark cloud around them that, Baylor now it feels like they are a legitimate team. And with Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC whenever that may be, like Baylor has an opportunity with Oklahoma State to really be the top dogs in that conference. So Brandon, I think for the first time ever, you and I have completely agreed. I scratched it out earlier. I had Cincy, but that's kind of a chalk take because I said they were going to go undefeated. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama, but they're not really a surprise. I think it's just a surprise they're in the playoff.
Yeah, they're not a surprise team. They got a surprise result.
Yes.
Jack Mack.
All right, so I agree with Michigan State and Michigan.
Sure.
And then I also agree with Pittsburgh. All the teams mentioned, I agree with. I think there's a few teams that need to be mentioned. Wake Forest, really, they had a great season. And then, they weren't that good, but they did go 12-1. UTSA, I don't think anybody saw that coming. And shout out to them. So that's my list. And then I'm just looking right now at some teams.
Well, let Katie give hers because you don't want to take them. But then there are some teams that need to be mentioned. Well, I won't say it. Katie, why don't you give yours and then we'll fill in the gaps.
Yeah. One I realized that we missed for most disappointing was Clemson. I don't think anyone said that. Just to put that in there.
I don't think they should be on there, frankly.
Yeah. I think
they were disappointing by Clemson standards, but I certainly don't think they were one of the most disappointing teams in the country.
But I think that if you ask, which is the same reason I said with Ohio State, I think that if you ask that fan base, it's a disappointing season because they're not where they normally are.
No. It is a disappointing season for sure. but I don't think it's nearly as disappointing as what Iowa State and Washington did. And A&M, you could probably argue about that one. But go ahead, Katie. Were you surprised?
Definitely argue with that one.
For the ones that haven't mentioned, I'd say Minnesota. They weren't phenomenal, but I think they finished 8-4, which is just compared to what they were a year or so ago. They got their shit together. Yeah, the Bowling Green loss, but after that, NIU, they were voted to finish last in the conference and then just won it. And then I think just Tennessee, because we all, even though they didn't do spectacularly by numbers, I think we thought that they were going to be a lot worse than they are. They had a lot of shit to deal with, and we didn't think that they have any players. But for what we thought coming into the season, how they did, I think they did very well.
Other teams, and Jack, you
can, that you're not going to like.
What?
But Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I would never put that on my list, but yeah, and I believe Arkansas too. I think Arkansas surprised some people this year. I'm surprised their coach, hasn't had to go to fat camp. But what else?
From a surprise,
Utah State had a team last year that literally fell apart.
Yeah.
Players quit in the middle of the season. I know it was probably more so COVID than that, but then Anderson came in there from Arkansas State. I mean, really awful tragedy with, I think his wife died of cancer while he was coaching at Arkansas State, and then he went to Utah State and they won the Mountain West this year, which is really, really impressive. So that's one of the underreported stories of the year, just because it's Mountain West. But Blake Anderson and Utah State, shout out to them. I mean, they were a defeat. They were awful last year. So yeah.
Why is Brandon hitting his chest?
There's a dog.
Sam.
Hey, buddy. Yeah. Okay. So there's your disappointing teams. There's your surprise teams.
Hey, Sam.
It has been a complete joke at my house during this entire. I've had kids coming in here. I've had the dog coming in here. I've had everybody. So I am glad this show is pretty much over.
Yeah, I think it is over because we don't have a shit list or anything. Oh, well, we do need shout out Army Navy.
Yeah.
It is. I didn't go. I know, Brandon. I don't think you went yesterday, did you?
I did not go. I had a date day with my wife.
No, that's right. Yes, you took her to Red Lobster. It's the first time I haven't gone since I've worked at Barstool. I mean, last year COVID didn't count, but it's I went back and looked at a lot of the videos from when we've done shows there, and I mean, the pageantry is just bar none. It's so cool. And I tweeted this, and I still think it's one of the coolest. And I understand, the people get mad because of the Air Force plays too. But the quote that the chaplain said at the 2019 game was, "This is the only game that everyone playing on the field would be willing to die for everybody who's watching." And I think that's just that just sends chills up my spine. It's just, I mean, it's one of the coolest events in sports.
It is. But the thing about war is,
oh no.
You can give me a ton of West Point graduates, but you.
Oh no!
Casey's actually been watching games forever that with guys on the field that are willing to die for her.
You give me a
game she's ever watched as a kid.
If you want to win a battle, give me a battalion full of West Point graduates. But if you want to win a war, you give me a handful of Texas Aggies.
That was a real quote.
By the way, General Patton talked a lot about Texas A&M. I'm sure it's definitely a real quote.
It's in the government books in Austin.
Cult, your cult.
Oh, because the Bevo thing was real too, and
that is also real.
Cult.
All of it's real.
Cult. All right. So for Jack, for Katie, for myself, and the cult member herself, Casey Smith, that is unnecessary roughness.